This video is brought to you by the 3-Minute Board Game patrons. Keep us independent by supporting us on Patreon.
Kia ora koutou and welcome to this very special video from 3-Minute Board Games, where I'm going to be diving into Final Girl Series 2. If you haven't already seen our Series 1 video for Final Girl, well, it's basically the same thing, aside from we're focusing on the first 5 boxes instead of the second 5 boxes. So what we're going to be covering in this video are the Season 2 boxes. So that's Into the Void, A Knock at the Door, Panic at Station 2891, Madness in the Dark, Once Upon a Full Moon, and the Vignette box, Terror from the Grave. What we're going to do is look at each of the killers in my order of preference, then look at each of the locations in my order of preference, and the final girls in my order of preference. Then based on those evaluations, I'm going to judge each feature film on its own merits. Then to wrap things up, I'll do a final score at the end, combining Season 1 and Season 2. Now the goal of the series is to do Season 3 next, and Season 4 when that's all done. So hopefully this Final Girl special series will be wrapped up by the end of the year. That's the plan at least, but I still need to get a whole bunch of plays in of Season 3 and especially Season 4 because I've only got one box from that so far. Alright, we're starting off with the killers, starting from my least favorite through to my favorite. First up, we have the Vignette, Terror from the Grave, and that focuses on the classic zombie tropes from Night of the Living Dead and other zombie movies. Now there's tons and tons of zombie media out there, but as far as I'm concerned, it all goes back to the original Romero trilogy.
Here we have the zombies from Terror Beyond the Grave, and as they are a Vignette enemy, they don't have a full killer board. So set them up like so. There are 2 main types of zombies. Individual zombies which act on the minion line, who do 1 damage, move 1 space and only have 1 health. And hordes that activate using the killer line and have the killer stat numbers. At the start of the game with zombies, you will spawn vehicle tokens at the exits, as well as zombie tokens at the exits and the killer's start location. Zombies will move normally if there is a nearby target, but otherwise they will move erratically. When a zombie kills a victim, replace that victim with a zombie. When this symbol pops up, either from a minion action or from a terror card, you'll spawn this number of zombies at the exits. Zombies, as minions, can be defeated with just 1 damage. Now if the final girl moves into a location with vehicle tokens, you flip those over. This symbol means there's nothing here, but this symbol means the vehicle is. And each of the locations comes with its own unique vehicle card. And that card becomes available to you once you've found the vehicle. If there are ever 3 zombies in one space, they form together and become a horde. And a horde has its own separate health pool. The first time a horde is formed, that's when you activate the zombie's dark power. Legion effectively doubles the amount of zombies that are coming in this game, and that makes a huge difference. One of the lose conditions against the zombies is if they try to form a 4th horde and they can't, you automatically lose. So if a horde turns up early, and this is your dark power card, the game can get out of control pretty quickly. Now, zombies normally only move once. They'll only activate on their minion activation, and they won't activate on a terror card. Runners gets rid of that rule. I don't mind runners. The game moves a lot faster and the zombies just come at you quicker, but it's much more easy to manage than Legion with all those extra zombies. Super Horde is super manageable. If a horde moves into a space with another horde, merge them into one horde combining their health. If any horde has 12 or more health, you immediately lose the game. This can sometimes be a lot easier to manage one big horde than it is 2 smaller hordes, because you're only getting 1 killer activation. I think this is by far the easiest one of these to manage, because that lose condition is actually softer than the default one of needing to get 4 hordes. The finales are really when things kick off. Most notably, there are no spawns here. All the terror cards are gone, and you're not getting the minion activation to spawn more zombies. So from here on in, the goal is just kill all the zombies. It does mean all the zombies are moving now and attacking, and that is a little bit different. Their numbers are endless is quite easy to manage because there's no terror card shaking things up. You know where they're going to move and how they're going to attack, and you're only losing 1 health if you've still got something in your space. If you've got to this finale, unless the board is completely chock with zombies, you should be able to run and gun from here to win. They've all been bitten is quite a bit worse, because if you haven't managed to clear the board of victims, you can suddenly end up with another horde somewhere. And if you've kept a couple of victims close to an exit just so you can use their victim powers later, that'll come back to bite you in the ass here. If you've already cleared the board of victims, this is only going to spawn 1 or 2 more zombies, which by this point you should be fine with. And I'm Overwhelmed is a complete nothing burger. The zombie terror cards are pretty dull, to be honest. They just keep coming as more zombies, there's attack and terror increases, and there's a few that had added effects when there are multiple hordes in play. But the only really interesting card in the terror deck is Mum, Is That You? The Minor Dark Power, which causes victims to panic towards the closest enemy.
Now my problem with Terror from the Grave is really its win condition. The only way to win this is to kill all the zombies, and that's pretty much impossible to do before the finale. So it really is a game about hanging on and doing a lot of combat stuff. I don't think the zombies make for a particularly interesting matchup, and it is a little bit grindy for me. I prefer it to the Birds vignette, but not by a huge amount. I like the idea of the vignettes a lot more than I enjoy actually playing them myself.
Grandma, wake up! It's time to wake up. I'm your granddaughter. I'm here to take care of you forever and ever and ever.
Number 5 is of course The Big Bad Wolf. Now that scene before, that was from a film called Freeway, which is a modern take on Red Riding Hood. It's a very intense film. The Big Bad Wolf in this is a lot more of a literal wolfy type guy who's gonna chase you down and act like a giant, big, scary, big bad wolf werewolf dude. He's not Kiefer Sutherland with bad teeth.
Here we have the Big Bad Wolf, who starts with 9 health and 5 horror. Its killer action changes based on what mode it is in. It starts the game in track mode, as indicated at the bottom of its turned over Dark Power card. While tracking, it will chase down the final girl and victims. When it's in slay mode, then it will start killing people. If you notice Terror Track, you'll see the Big Bad Wolf is incredibly fast and ends up being quite a hard hitter. But even at the start of the game, it's one of the quickest killers out of the box. On the second step of its Terror Track, the Dark Power is flipped over, and this will always change the mode to slay mode. And it never reverts back to the tracking mode. I am a big fan of the Retaliate card, so Sixth Sense is a card that I really do not like seeing. Retaliate is an exceedingly good card, and losing some of its efficacy will be really noticed. Especially if on your turn you manage to knock it down to its final health token, and then it's come back from the dead and it tries to attack you. Normally, that's when Retaliate comes into its own, because you can block the damage and then do the killing blow. Sixth Sense ignores that, so you have to take that into account. Destructive Roar goes after the item deck, and that's quite an unusual thing for a killer to do. And as the Dark Powers tend to come out pretty early against the Big Bad Wolf, if your final girl's relying on gear to defeat the Big Bad Wolf, this could be a real problem. It is really easy to lose a good weapon against the Big Bad Wolf. So if you are playing against the Big Bad Wolf and there's an ace weapon on top of one of the stacks, go for it immediately. I know that's usually pretty good advice, but even more so against the Big Bad Wolf. And Ravenous Hunger is just dirty. When revealed, place the Big Bad Wolf in the space with the most victims, and all victims in that space are killed. Now I've had that happen to me in the common room in the Asylum and had 6 people killed at once. That was particularly not cool. This is almost certainly going to take out at least 2 victims. And remember, you're going to advance the terror track for each of those victims that's killed. So this can escalate the Big Bad Wolf really quickly. Big Bad Wolf's finales are pretty scary too. You are not getting away from the Big Bad Wolf for Thrill of the Hunt. It's going to move and attack, and then if it hasn't got you, it's going to move again. And it's also going to regenerate. If this is your finale, you're almost best to just stand your ground and try and fight it where you are, because you're not getting away from it. I really don't like Tasty Treats. I've had Tasty Treats fully heal up the Big Bad Wolf, and its killer ability is just brutal. Because it's so damn fast, only having 1 movement isn't a big deal. You're hardly going to outrun the Big Bad Wolf anyway, and then it's going to have 2 attacks. This is an awful finale because it can undo any previous work you've done trying to put some hits on the Big Bad Wolf, and 2 attacks is just going to wear you down so much quicker. It's very hard to guard and retaliate against 2 hits around. Next up we have Rampant Growth. And each time the Big Bad Wolf attacks you, the horror track goes up by 1. And its killer action has it attacking you twice. Note that that's attack, not hit. So if you're down to a final showdown between the 2 of you, that horror track is going to go up 2 each turn. And that can get out of hand real quick. The Epic Dark Power is a subtle one, but it's quite scary, because for the rest of the game you resolve both the track and slay killer actions. And remember, this Dark Power is revealed pretty early on, so your Big Bad Wolf is going to be moving and hitting often. This is definitely an epic Dark Power, and it makes the Big Bad Wolf that much harder to deal with. And the epic finale is 1 more bite. You are not getting away from the Big Bad Wolf in this case, and if there's any victims left alive, they're going to die really, really quickly. While there's a lot happening in that killer action and its special words, it does boil down to, this thing can move technically 4 times, and probably attack twice. You're not getting away from this. The Big Bad Wolf's minor dark powers aren't too scary. They're the kind of powers that wear you down. They don't dramatically change the game and the game's tempo. You're going to want to get rid of them, but essentially they're just 2 hit points and a minor inconvenience. Now, a lot of the Big Bad Wolf's terror cards will have different things whether it's in track or slay mode. And it's worth reminding you that the Epic Dark Power only works for the killer action, not the terror cards. It's not going to resolve both the lines on these cards. You'll notice that a couple of the track lines will move the terror track up. So even if the Big Bad Wolf isn't killing someone, it's going to flick into slay mode eventually. The other thing the Big Bad Wolf has is some victim manipulation. So going for a walk today is a teleport that allows it to get close to a victim. Grandma Is It You can move all the victims towards the Big Bad Wolf or do a whole bunch of horror. And then Come Closer My Pretty is really scary. Because the victims can come from different adjacent locations, this can have the Big Bad Wolf killing 3 quite comfortably, and then recovering health.
Here's the thing with Season 2. I actually really like the Big Bad Wolf. I think he is a fantastic starting villain. And his gameplay is such that he could easily replace Hans as your default starting villain. The villain you start people off to teach them the game. Because you've got that period where you have the tracking going on, where the Big Bad Wolf isn't too scary, but that's over pretty quickly, and it goes to be a big scary bad. Where Hans is slow moving but hard hitting, the Big Bad Wolf is very fast moving and reasonably hard hitting. But it's a nice rules-like baddie with a very high tempo, especially as the game goes on and the terror track heads up. What I have to say about Season 2 is overall I think Season 2 is much stronger than Season 1. So while the Big Bad Wolf was my lowest ranked killer in Season 2, it was very tough competition for it to go up against. And there are definitely killers from Season 1 and Season 3 that I rate below this one. So yeah, Big Bad Wolf is a great starting killer. It's just that the Season 2 killers are that good and the competition is that stiff.
It's a lot of baloney. It's a lot of baloney and I'm tired.
All right, Dancing. You'll be better in the morning. You know you're tired. We're all tired.
I'm tired and it's a lot of baloney.
You're not tired, Mancini.
Then we have number 4, the Ratchet Lady. Now the Ratchet Lady is a unique creation of Van Ryder Games. She is heavily inspired by Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But that character wasn't a killer in the strictest sense of the word. That character was just terrifying. They've taken the idea of a terrifying psychiatric nurse and really dialed it up to 11 here. And I think they've done an amazing job of creating a character that feels familiar while being quite unique.
Next up we have the Ratchet Lady, who starts with 5 horror and 6 health. Now it's worth noting that the Ratchet Lady has no upper health value. That number can just keep going up and up. The Ratchet Lady also has maniac minions, and we'll talk about them a little later. Her default killer action is just to stab. Her terror track is reasonably benign. She's a fast mover, but she doesn't have default movement on her own, and even at the top of the track she's only hitting for 3. Her minion action is for the minions to move. Now her minions are called maniacs. They have 1 health and attack and movement value of 1. They won't follow you and can't be saved. And maniacs will activate on some of the terror cards with the Ratchet Lady. Now, there is a special card that comes with the Ratchet Lady called Calm, and you can use that to turn maniacs back into victims. The reason maniacs are really annoying is because if there's maniacs in your space and you want to leave that space, you receive 1 damage for each maniac more than 1. They essentially do damage to you just to get away from them. The Dark Power comes in about halfway through. Bloodfear is pretty straightforward. Each time horror or terror increases by at least 1 during the killer phase, she's going to gain a health. Now this is something you're going to deal with the Ratchet Lady, is that sometimes her health value can get pretty silly. And if Bloodfear comes out reasonably early, this can tick up to give her quite a lot of health. Manic Burst isn't too bad. It does make the minions move as soon as they're placed on the board. And as you'll find out, having maniacs in your face isn't a good time. But as far as dark powers go, this one's quite manageable. And then we have Dark Injection, which means the first time she recovers 1 health during the killer phase, she recovers an additional health. Again, this can lead to her health getting out of control. Okay, Feed the Madness. The maniacs now are moving and attacking. They're not just moving. And the Ratchet Lady is recovering health, moving, and attacking. Now obviously if you've got one of the health recovery dark powers, this means she's likely to be recovering 2 health a round. Not insurmountable, but it can add up. Hold her down I find to be quite brutal. The maniacs aren't attacking, and that's good for you. But when revealed, all remaining victims become maniacs. And that can potentially be a bit of a problem if you haven't cleared out the location. The reason I don't like this one is because she gets to move and attack, and I always find killer finale actions with multiple attacks to be the ones that really threaten you. Its raining maniacs is all kinds of brutal, because the maniacs are coming for you and they are each attacking twice. And the Ratchet Lady is just spawning maniacs and sending them after you. If I was to pick an epic finale to make the Ratchet Lady feel most Ratchet Lady, it's definitely its raining maniacs. She's essentially staying in one space and then flinging minions at you until you can break through and get to her and kill her. This is a really fun finale. And the epic finale, Enter the Madhouse, just gives the Ratchet Lady a ton of health, spawns some minions, and then they will hunt you as a pack. And that's pretty epic too. The epic dark power is horrific. One tactic to use against the Ratchet Lady is to hit and run her and to keep her health relatively low. Another tactic is to go straight for her early game before that health is built up. If this epic dark power is out, it's really hard to do that. The Ratchet Lady has two minor powers, and both of these, while easy to remove, can make the game spiral out of control pretty quickly. As her game plan is all about turning people into maniacs. She does have some really busy cards, like March of the Maniacs. You can be completely on top of the maniacs, and then with this one card, you'll have 4 or 5 of them to deal with. Another big theme on her terror cards is having activations for the maniacs and for the Ratchet Lady herself. The other big theme of the Ratchet Lady's cards is her getting health. Blood Transfusion is a really weird card, but it can generate a lot of health for her. But even something like Let Me Tend to Your Wounds, this is quite likely to give her a bonus 2 health. And remember, if she's got one of those dark powers out, this could be 3 health. This doesn't need to happen very often before she's sitting on like 15 to 18 health.
The Ratchet Lady is all about 2 things really, and that is getting that health super high and having her minions run around being chaotic. I really like the challenge she brings to the game, and I think she's a much more effective minion killer than say Geppetto is. And I think she's a lot more useful on more maps. She can feel very swingy at times, but I don't mind that so much. And she does present a unique challenge if you've let her health run away on you, and you turn around to fight her and she's up to 16 or 18 health. That can get pretty scary. So yeah, the Ratchet Lady is a very good minion-based killer, and I really like how dynamic she makes the game feel.
Watching Norris in there gave me the idea that maybe every part of him was a whole. Every little piece was an individual animal with a built-in desire to protect its own life. You see, when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. The blood from one of you things won't obey when it's attacked. It'll try and survive. Crawl away from a hot needle, say.
Number 3 killer is the Organism. Now, the Organism is clearly inspired by The Thing, specifically John Carpenter's The Thing, which is of course an adaptation of an earlier book, Who Goes There? And there's also the prequel, The Thing, which is kind of ruined a little bit by the CGI effects not being particularly great. Still, I think I enjoyed that film a lot more than most people. I think it's fine. John Carpenter's Thing, on the other hand, that's my all-time favorite horror movie. Well, maybe my second all-time favorite horror movie.
Next up we have the Organism, who starts on 5 horror. When playing with the Organism, you'll need to put the testing kit cards above each search location. When you search a location, you'll get the card you're looking for, plus a testing kit. You then replace 3 random victims with the red, grey, and black pawns. These represent exposed victims. Also place the lab marker in the killer's starting spot. Now the killer starts the game hidden, and there could be 1, 2, or 3 different killers depending on how things go down. You can test one of the exposed victims if you are both at the lab location, or if you have a testing kit and meet them somewhere else. You shuffle the test result deck. If you draw a safe, you replace the exposed victim with a regular victim. You then remove that card from the game. There will always be at least 1 killer. If you draw simulated, reveal the mutated organism and apply the bloodlust effects from the bottom to the current bloodlust level. Let's look how that works. The organism doesn't have a regular terror track. It'll move up as normal through card effects and people dying, but you won't activate anything until an assimilated alien is revealed. Each of these columns represents one of the exposed victims. When they are revealed, flip over this card and then find the matching killer card for it. Then cross-reference it from where the terror track currently is, and then go down and do all of those actions. So here that's attack, increase horror, and then move. Now if the terror track goes up, if there's an already exposed killer, you resolve the actions as normal. Because we have all 3 showing here, horror would go up twice and the central killer would panic. The Organism does not have dark power cards. It does have finales. Reductive assimilation means you have to hit and run at the end of the game. If you stand and fight against the Organism and don't kill it and start your turn in its space, then that's game over. It's worth mentioning that whenever the finale is revealed, all remaining exposed victims are immediately assimilated. You go through the same procedure that we showed before with revealing a new killer, at the beginning of the killer phase. If it's ever above 6, you've been assimilated and lose the game. This one's not too bad. You should be, at this stage, be quite comfortable being able to keep that horror track down, because some of the really spicy attacks do take a horror off. This is one that could get out of control, but I feel at this stage you should be focusing on having horror solo that you're using 3 dice, and the first thing you do at the start of each of your phases is bring yourself down to that 3 dice level. Cognitive assimilation is nothing. You have to discard 2 action cards at the beginning of the killer phase. They're not random action cards, so you can just discard 0 cost cards. As far as finales go, this one's pretty easy. It's worth noting that each of the different killers has their own separate finale action. So while they've got their own killer action, they do have a different finale action. It's particularly important for the middle one, who goes from killer action of panicking to finale action of moving twice and attacking. That's a huge change. We also have final assimilation, and I don't actually think this one is worthy of being an epic finale. If you are ever in the same space as a mutated organism that has full health during the killer phase, you have been assimilated and lose the game. I feel like this is one you can deal with reasonably easily. The rightmost killer here will recover health, but you should be able to take that into account. It does encourage you to split your damage though. But yeah, overall, as far as epic finales go, I'm not feeling this one. The minor dark powers for the organism are pretty okay to me. It tends to soup up one and only one of the possible 3 forms. That's way less threatening than if there was a single killer that was getting this boost. Now, because there's no active killer at the start of the game, a lot of the organism's terror cards will have contingencies about what happens if there's no mutated organism in play. The long and the short of it is that horror and terror is going to go up. A lot of these effects will only take place if a mutated organism is in play. Another big theme in the terror cards for the organism is around testing. So if someone is destroying the test, will blow up some of those test kits. Whereas We Are Not Alone will conduct a test, but it's a test that you can only get a bad result from. And yeah, if you're unlucky, Are We Alone can cause all 3 of them to spawn at once. The odds on that are not great, but it can happen. And then there's a whole bunch of other cards that futz with victims. They cause victims to run around, panic, and do stupid things. But while the organism can do plenty of damage to you before it's revealed, you really do want to reveal it as soon as you can.
The organism is a really good time. A little swingy sometimes because if you luck into it with the test kits, you might end up only having to fight 1 mutated organism. But you know what? I'm kind of fine with that because each time you do that, it feels like you've earned it. The mutated organism does create the feel of the thing reasonably well for a solo game. Because by its nature, it's really hard to do paranoia in a solo game because there's only you. Who's going to betray you? Yourself? So creating that feeling of distrust amongst the victims and making you go, I don't really want to be around the other victims is quite neat. I like that the different mutated organisms have their own character, and if you end up having to fight all 3 of them, it's damn tough. The organism is a killer that rewards being proactive, and I really like that about it. This is an excellent adaptation of the ideas in The Thing, and a fantastic killer. Number 2 is, of course, the Evomorph. Now, the Evomorph is clearly the alien from the Alien franchise. And before, when I said The Thing was my favorite horror movie, it's my second favorite horror movie. The original Alien is probably my all-time favorite horror movie. It's just so damn good. And I'm really pleased with how Van Ryder Games turned one of my favorite movie franchises into a fantastic Final Girl feature film.
Next up, we have the Evomorph, who starts with 4 horror and 4 health. Now, the Evomorph will go through 3 different evolutionary stages, and they're very important because they change how the Evomorph plays. The first stage, the hatchling, it's got slow movement but 10 damage. Now, you can potentially defeat it at this stage before it kills anyone, but if it's still alive and you fail to roll 2 successes on your retaliate or your guard roll, you're dead. Or at least you're down to your final health. Now, while it's a hatchling, the terror track can't advance until it kills someone. It has to actually have a victim before it can evolve to become a youngling. Now, fortunately for it, its killer action is a move and an attack, so the hatchling can move around quite comfortably and kill someone, usually in its first or second turn. Once it kills someone, it becomes a youngling, and then it automatically hides. So while the Evomorph has vanished, instead of having a normal killer phase, you'll draw one of these cards, and the side you will read will depend on whether it's a youngling or an adult. So skip the normal killer action and revealing a terror card, and instead do this. Once the terror track gets to this point, where it says evolve the second time, the Evomorph will become an adult. Its maximum health will increase to 10, it will then recover all health lost at that point, and it will reveal its dark power and rotate the ambush deck. So now that it's vanished, you'll be using the adult side of these cards. It's worth noting that these cards have a value from 1 to 10, and that indicates just how bad and scary the card is. There's a quick way to pass whether the card you're going to draw is a scary one or not. And you see the difference between gaining 2 time or having the adult attack twice. It's quite a big difference. Whenever the vanish symbol is resolved, you remove the killer from the board. And as we said before, in the killer phase, instead of resolving a killer action and a terror card, you resolve an ambush card instead. However, you do have mechanisms against this. You can use the scan action. And with 1 or 2 successes, you can place an X in your space. With 3 successes, you can place the Evomorph in your space and then skip the next killer action. That removes the scan from the game and you only have 3 of them. The reason scans are important is when you draw ambush cards like this. So while 2 victims are going to die here, at least you're not being attacked twice. Now let's take a look at the Evomorph's dark powers. Symbiotic camouflage has the adult spawn as close as it can to you, and from this point on, when drawing ambush cards, you draw an extra one and choose the one with the highest danger value. Now as I showed before, these cards can be quite swingy, so choosing the higher one is always bad news. Razor Claws is quite inconvenient, because discarding random cards means you can discard the really big attack you've been saving. Also, if the Evomorph ends up with multiple attacks, this could cause you to discard your spare guard cards, which is not a good time. And Acid Blood, well, every time you damage the Evomorph in your space, you'll take health damage. This is a tax that gets really annoying. Because of the Evomorph's high health pool, you're going to have to hit it a whole bunch of times. And hitting from range is not particularly easy. The Evomorph has horrific finales. Blitz of Death is just move, attack, move, attack. And when you look over at the terror track, the adult can easily be moving 3 or 4 spaces and hitting for 3 or 4 damage. Blitz of Death is going to be a very short game, regardless of who wins or loses. Now, Death in the Dark is a very interesting one, because normally in the finale, there are no terror cards, there's no random stuff happening. Here, the Evomorph is vanishing at the end of its killer action every turn, and then drawing 2 cards and picking the one with the highest danger. You're going to have to scan every turn to make yourself safe, or you're going to get hit brutally hard by this. This is a fun one to play against, because it makes the finale feel very different, and very thematic. Whereas Blitz of Death is just a straight out stab fest. This is a very tactical kind of finale. And then you have the perfect Organism, and this is a brutal finale. The Evomorph will move twice and then it will attack twice. You're not getting away from it, and it's going to try to kill you twice. I mean, there's some good general advice of don't get into finales if you can avoid them, but against the Evomorph, that's doubly true. Its epic finale is just ridiculous. Sure, it becomes a slow tank, it's only moving and attacking once, but reducing all damage you inflict on it by 2 to a minimum of 1. You're gonna just have to hit this thing for a whole bunch of 1 damage attacks, and that will take time. And then its epic dark power is the Razor Tail. When revealed, place the Evomorph in a space with the most victims and kill every victim there. But the kicker is its ability. When it attacks at least once, attack an additional time in each adjacent space. Like, that's madness. That is incredibly strong and can take out 2 or 3 victims a turn, as well as hitting the final girl. That is a suitably epic dark power. The Sideswipe minor dark power is really awful. I hate it. Because not only is it going to disappear and run away from you, it's going to give you an attack as it's doing it. Dead Silence and Shadow Dread, they just make those ambushes that much worse. So as you see, there's a lot of vanishing actions on these terror cards. The Evomorph will do its strong default killer action, which is move and attack, then draw one of these, which could potentially have it move and attack again, and then vanish. Shadow Blitz, for example, is a complete bastard of a card, because it vanishes and then immediately jumps in before you've had any opportunity to scan. It's going to be revealing an ambush card and coming in to kick you again. Then the Evomorph has these 3 cards that I find an interesting trio, because each of them is an extreme number in one category. Scratches in the Dark is extreme movement. Oh God, Where Did It Go is extreme horror score, and Skullburster does extreme damage. I mean, Skullburster can be an 8 damage attack, which is horrifying. So overall, the Evomorph's terror cards are an interesting mix of hit and run tactics and then just very strong, scary cards.
So yeah, the Evomorph is a real challenge. It's got those 3 forms it evolves through, it's got its special ambush rules, and when it finally does come for you in its adult form, it is dangerous and tough and fast moving and brutal. I think the Evomorph is one of the toughest killers they've put out, and it's definitely the toughest killer in this set. Plus, it's just a really good implementation of the ideas of Alien. This feels like an Alien game, and that's all I really wanted from this box. It is also quite fun having the Alien at other locations. One of my favorite places to play the Evomorph is actually at the Asylum, where it's got plenty of things to chow down, and that whole scenario feels strangely like Alien 3. Anyway, Evomorph, fantastic killer, one of the best they've ever done. It's got a big thumbs up on its own, but a double thumbs up because of its theme.
Why are you doing this to us? Because you were home.
And my favorite killer in Season 2 is The Intruders. Now, this feature film is inspired by two films in particular, The Strangers and You're Next. Of those two films, I very much recommend You're Next as the better of them. It's just a great horror film, with one of the best final girls ever in the history of final girls. Of course, the cool thing about The Intruders is there's 3 of them.
Next up we have the Intruders, which consist of 3 killers. However, unlike the Organism, they're not hiding, they're just straight out killing people from the start of the game. Each of the killers starts in this killer start space, so they all start off together. Now, there's a special K marker that designates the active killer. At the start of the game, all the killers just have a default action of all killers stab, but none of them are moving. When you reveal a tarot card, it will potentially have this special symbol here. This one shows that the killer marker moves down 1 step. Now, the killer it's on is the active killer for the rest of that action. So they will be the one moves and attacks. And then horror will go up by 1. Then on this card, the current killer will activate the top line. Then it will move up 1 step and activate the second line on the second killer. And then it'll move up 1 step, which loops around. So the third killer will activate the bottom line. And that's how you have 3 different killers taking actions. Each killer also has their individual health pools, and if any one of the killers is removed, well, you just skip them. The terror track is reasonably tame, aside from a lot of horror advances. And it might not seem like much having the top of the track be 3 damage and 3 foot, but that's potentially all 3 killers activating and doing that, which is quite grisly. Dark powers come about halfway down the terror track. No Remorse is just gonna push that terror track up each and every turn. Roll die at the start of each upkeep phase, the result is greater than the number of killers, advance the terror track. There's no way to counter this really. Sure, you can kill off the killers, but that's kind of what you want to do anyway. This is just adding an extra time to the game that's going to accelerate it to its finale. It's a bit of a scary one. Strength in numbers, this is a really great thematic one. They just do extra damage if they're with another killer or adjacent to another killer. And Maskophobia, once per turn when a killer moves into your space, horror increases by 1. And you may not purchase focus while a killer is in your space. That is very cool. So you see this element here of ratcheting up the horror track, because they start with 3 horror, but they're getting all this extra horror on the terror track. And if you draw this one as well, not only are they pushing horror up, you're also not able to get focus, which is one of your key ways of getting horror down. The finales are all awful. You're gonna die is a move and attack, and then change the killer and move attack again. Now it's worth mentioning, if you are down to 1 killer, this means that 1 killer that's left is going to move and attack twice. Release the beast, that just makes them all the active killer, and they're all going to move and attack. This one's not too bad if you've already killed at least one of them. Then it's on par with the previous one, and it actually makes killing that last one just that little bit easier. But if you get to the finale with all 3 killers in play, this is awful. They can get on top of you and bludgeon you to death real quick. Now, Hunt Sweet Hunt's probably one of the easiest ones to deal with. Each of their attacks is going to do an additional damage, but because there's only 1 attack coming each round, at least you can use a guard or retaliate and hopefully neutralize all of that damage. I think Hunt Sweet Hunt is the easiest of these to manage, but it does mean you're still going to be getting attacked for probably 4 damage each turn. You have to find a way to counter that. Now, I've mentioned before, I find double attack actions the hardest ones to deal with, because they run you out of guard cards and they can just sneak through and just do a lot of damage in a round and end the game very quickly. And this one, when revealed, all killers are going to move and attack, and then you've got the killer action of moving and attacking twice. So when revealed can be a real game changer here, because as soon as that flips over, if there's 2 or 3 of them anywhere near you, that's potentially like 6 or 9 damage that you're trying to block out. Very scary stuff. Won't Stay Down for me is a pretty manageable Epic Dark Power. It's just going to extend the game a little bit, and it's definitely something you can take into account. Let's have a look at their terror cards, and starting with their Amphetamines Dark Power, this one's a bit of a tricky one, because I like to go after them one at a time. I try to isolate 1 killer, get them out of the game before the Dark Power is revealed if possible, so I'm only dealing with 2 killers towards the end of the game, and this just short circuits that. It just makes it that much harder to get rid of that 1 killer. A coordinated attack is awful. It's an automatic extra move and attack. That can turn a game very, very quickly. So these are strong and scary Mighty Dark Powers. I find Go Away an extremely interesting card. I've put it on here just to talk about it because I think it's fantastic design. Because each killer is going to take damage if it's by a victim. That's cool. But then the killers retaliate and kill those victims, and then you draw an event. There's a lot happening on this card, but it's exciting every time you pull it out. You'll then have a look through these cards and you'll see just how strong the Intruder terror cards are. I mean, where are they coming from? You got a double move and an attack from 1 killer, Then it's going to shift, and then that active killer is going to teleport to the furthest victim and start attacking them, completely outflanking you. And the other ones are just lots of actions. They will hunt you as 3 different Final Girl actions. Only one is a stab, the rest of them are just them coming for you. The Intruders have very strong terror cards that add out a lot of attacks, and that makes for a very exciting and interesting dynamic killer.
So yeah, I really like the Intruders as a set of killers. I like that there's 3 of them on the board and that they move around and that you can isolate one of them and take them out, or they can gang up on you. It creates a really dynamic, flowing gameplay experience. And they're tough. I don't think they're tougher than the Evomorph, but they're a lot simpler to run. And it's a combination of simplicity to run plus being tough and creating a really dynamic and interesting killer to fight against. Because you have to kill all 3 of these suckers, and as you do that, the remaining ones get tougher and scarier. And I really, really like that about it. Instead of a regular killer where you get 1 showdown, here you get 3 of them. Absolutely my favorite killer, possibly my favorite killer overall. My least favorite location in Season 2 is the Storybook Woods. And that's inspired by classic fairy tales as well as modern takes on those dark fables.
Here we have the Storybook Woods location. It has 3 searchable locations and 2 exit spaces. There are also 3 bridge locations, and these can be referenced in tarot cards. There are also a whole bunch of raft locations along the river that interact with this location's vehicle. Another thing to note about the Storybook Woods is it's a location with one of the least amount of areas. It's quite a small map. The equipment cards on the Storybook Woods are a little bit interesting because there's very few weapons. There's no big chainsaws or flamethrowers or anything like that. What there are though are things like the thorny vines, chicken bones, and songbirds. The thorny vines and the chicken bones are both forms of trap, whereas the songbirds is an unusual ranged attack. Well, it's not even an attack, it's just automatic damage to the killer. It's a very strong card. One of my favorite cards from here is the Red Cape. When you're wearing that, if there's a tie between you and the victim, the killer will target you instead of the victim. And that opens up some really interesting strategies. Storybook Woods has some strong and interesting events. The Pied Piper is terrifying. You place a Pied Piper in the village, and any victims in the same space as the Pied Piper, now or in the future, are killed. So the village just becomes a death spot. That's absolutely brutal. The breadcrumb path allows the final girl to teleport around the board a little, and that's really neat. And the toll bridge allows you to add an extra bridge to the map. And that's one of my favorite events in all of Final Girl, because it fundamentally redraws how the map works. Let's look at some of the tarot cards. Some of them revolve around Grandmother's house, and that's a central location on the map. I think it's kind of funny that it's Grandmother's house on the card, but Grandma's house on the board. No one's actually going to get confused by that, but it's interesting that they did that. This makes Grandmother's house this nice central location that's going to pull things in. I also like tarot cards that have events on them, because the events in the Storybook Woods are quite interesting. You've got the full moon is out, which allows the killer to teleport and kill every victim in that space. And if no victims are killed, you draw and resolve the next tarot card. This card can really upset your plans. I've nearly had the killer defeated, only to have them teleport to the other side of the board, which is really frustrating. And other times it's gone to the killer's advantage, where I'd move some victims out of the way and they teleport straight to them and kill them. Absolutely awful, mean card. Then there's Out of the Woods. This one makes all victims that are not in your space move 1 space towards the village, and then the killer attacks the final girl. Now remember, the village might have the Pied Piper in it, so this can be quite a brutal card.
Thing is, this is not a bad location. It's not bad at all. Really, this is just a case of the Storybook Woods being up against a whole bunch of really cool locations. And that combined with the fairy tale thing not doing a lot for me. Now, this location does have some really cool features to it. There's not a lot of weapons, which makes it a little bit tough. It's got less locations, and it's got some really interesting traps and other things in it. It's not a bad location by any means. It's just up against some really super thematic and super fun ones from Season 2.
It's Bennings.
right there, Mac. I swear to God it had a hold of him.
My number 4 location is Station 2891. This is of course based on the station from The Thing.
Here we have Station 2891. The station has 3 searchable locations and only 1 exit. It also has a clear delineation between indoor and outdoor areas. The main indoor area is quite noteworthy because it has 2 main corridors and then everything is rooms off those corridors. There are very limited entrances and exits from the main building to outside, meaning that if the killer ends up in one of those corridors, they can do quite a bit of damage. There are 2 main special rules for Station 2891. Here we have one of the terror cards, and you'll see that it has this thermometer symbol. When the thermometer symbol is resolved, place a marker beside each victim and the final girl if she's outside. You can remove the frostbite symbol once you go inside, and that counts the main building or one of the huts. If you would ever gain a second frostbite symbol, if it's a victim, that victim's killed. If it's the final girl, she takes a damage. The other symbol used at 2891 is the helicopter symbol. When playing at the station, you'll need the helicopter card. The helicopter can only hold up to 3 victims, and you must load them at the location with the helicopter. Then each time one of those symbols is resolved, the helicopter will move 1 space towards the airport. Only once it reaches the airport can those victims be counted as saved. Now this can happen off terror cards or from the Fly Faster card. The helicopter then needs to return to the Arctic station before you can place it back on the map to load it with more victims to escape. The Antarctic station has some events that really mess up the victims and cause a lot of chaos. Pair Up has you pick up all of the alone victims and then pair them up. Someone Pull Their Fire Alarm has everyone in the main building panic, and that can have people flood outside, but usually they'll all end up in the damn corridors. And Who Goes There is one of a number of event cards that add new victims to the helicopter landing spot. Victims on this map panic and are hard to control, and they're especially hard to save, so it makes it a really happy hunting ground for a lot of killers. In the item deck are 2 Malamuts, and if you manage to get both of these out, it's a fearsome combination. I also just like the idea that, you can have a pair of dogs running around with you. That's cool. I don't think every location needs dogs, but I like that the station has one, especially considering how iconic an Alaskan Malamute is to the Thing franchise. The station also comes with a flamethrower, which is a very strong, very powerful weapon. It is a little situational, and it works better against killers with massive health pools, but it's also really good at burning down minions. Geppetto and the Ratchet Lady do not like the flamethrower either. I love the roller skates, that's just such a nod to the Thing movie. They're not necessarily the most useful item, I just like that they're here. And I do like the 2-way radio because of how victims panic so much on this map. Having a tool that allows you to move victims is a really good thing. It's also a great way to load up the helicopter. The terror cards at Station 2891 are really busy. So these will have a starting clause, then you got some of them have events, then killer attacks, then resolving the frost token, then resolving the helicopter. When playing at the ice station, you need to be mindful about following these steps one at a time, especially when you get derailed by 2 events with the generator is out. Because you have to remember to do the first thing, then resolve each event in turn, then come back to the killer action, then do the ice tokens, then do the helicopter. It's a busy location. Now whether that's a good or a bad thing is entirely up to you.
The ice station is just a bit of a miserable location. It's always a challenge and a hard time. The helicopter just makes saving people an absolute nightmare. And in many ways, the difference between saving 4 people and 6 people on a final girl is pretty negligible, because that's 2 helicopter trips. And that's a lot of time and a lot of effort. And sometimes you might not get the time to rescue that many survivors. That combined with the cards that drive people out into the cold and the frost, it's a hard time. But I guess that is a good thing because it is a challenging location. But it challenges you in a way that doesn't feel hugely fun. Still, I prefer it to the Storybook Woods because I do occasionally like having my ass kicked by this game. And the ice station is very good at doing that.
Catholic Church bought this place in '62 and turned it into a sanitarium for the criminally insane. Legend has it that once you were committed at Briarcliff, you never got out. Their most famous resident was a serial killer named
Bloody Face. Say Bloody Face.
Bloody Face.
My number 3 location is Wolf Asylum. Now, the Asylum is a classic horror location, and if you really want to watch something involving asylums, check out American Horror Story Season 2 Asylum. It's probably my favorite series of American Horror Story. It's got some really terrifyingly horrible stuff happens in it.
Next up we have Wolf Asylum. Wolf Asylum has 3 searchable locations and 3 exit spaces. It also has a very interesting labyrinthine layout, with a common room dominating the center of the board. At game start, you'll place down 4 pills onto the map, as indicated on the start card, and the pills are the special mechanic of the Wolf Asylum. When the final girl moves into a space with a pill, she picks it up and adds it to her available pills. You also do start with 1 available pill, and there is this multicolour pill that can be used as any of the 3 colours. Now you can spend 1 pill for the matching effect up the top, a pair of pills for the effects in the middle, or spend 3 pills, 1 of each type, to draw an amped card. Now amped cards are exceedingly strong. Final Girl 2.0 is absolutely amazing. Reveal and flip your ultimate and then gain a second ultimate ability. And there are some disturbingly good combos you can do here. Extreme Agility, +1 for all horror rolls, is just absolute gold. And even Resistance, ignoring Dark Power and Minor Dark Powers, that can be incredibly strong situationally. There are others, and they are all good, but these are probably my 3 favourites. Every time you take a pill though, you'll have to draw a side effect card, unless you're only using 1 pill at a time. And the side effect cards can have things like no effect on them, or they can do stuff like this. For me, that is absolutely worth the trade-off, and I almost always work towards getting the amped card. That said, the getting 5 time, recovering all health, and reducing horror by 3 are also exceedingly strong effects. The pills really help the final girl. To counteract this though, Wolf Asylum does have some pretty grim event cards. A Dr. Death and Hannibal the Cannibal, they're going to be roaming around and murdering people as well. And then Welcome to the Madhouse adds a skull to the common room, and when you or an enemy enters that space, you or it is dealt a damage. And that makes the common room into a big trap. Now there's some interesting items in the Wolf Asylum as well. There's mysterious pills that you discard to take 2 of the spare pill tokens. If you're lucky with mysterious pills, you might end up being able to get 2 amped cards, which is not nothing. I like the Bone Saw. I really like that it's a strong attack card, but it increases horror. And I think there should be more weapons that have a downside when you use them. I think the Bone Saw is really good design. On the other hand, there's the Defibrillator, which only does 1 damage, but if the enemy is still alive, they get stunned, and stunned is a big deal. Stunned happens on a few effects on the Wolf Asylum. A stunned enemy will not activate its movement. So say you're up against a killer like the Big Bad Wolf that is very fast. You hit them with the stun gun, and then you back away. And it can't move, it'll flail in its space, and then you can jump back in and attack it next turn. Stunned is exceedingly powerful. And let's look at some of the terror cards. All Hail the New Master. This one moves all the victims 1 space closer to the killer, and then has the killer go on a stabbing spree. That's all kinds of brutal. And then probably my favourite card from the set, 4 o'clock, time for bingo, that moves everyone closer to that common room. And then you count how many people are in the common room. And if no one turns up for bingo, the horror score goes up through the roof. It's just clever and fun. And there are other cards that revolve around the common room being the central part of this map.
Wolf Asylum has a lot going for it. It has a really interesting layout with these like dead-end rooms and solitary confinement spaces. Then you got the big common room, which draws people in that can be really dangerous. Plus the pills. The pills are hilarious. I like that they're a double-edged sword. Even if some of the amped powers are beyond the pale good, they are so damn good. It's just a fun scenario to run around like your Pac-Man gobbling up pills to see what power-ups you get. But at the same time, mixed in with one of the grimmer locations in the entire franchise. I really like Wolf Asylum. In any other series, this would have probably been the #1 pick, because it's a really interesting, fun location. And yeah, those amped cards are just, they're a wicked time.
You away from the window! What is happening? I don't see anyone. Why would anybody do this? They've been watching us for days. This wasn't a random attack.
My #2 location is Windguard Cottage. Windguard Cottage represents a big, isolated house, the kind of location you'd see in Your Next, as well as Ready or Not.
The next location is Windguard Cottage. It has 3 searchable locations and 3 exits. There's also very clearly the big house as well as the outdoor areas. Around the map there are also these searchable locations that you can pick up crafting goods. Rope, wood, nails, and discarded tools. And the wood's available in 2 spots. This is important because when you set up Windguard Cottage, you're going to have a list of crafted items available for you to make. And these use some regular items plus these crafting materials, and you combine them into top tier level stuff. I mean, look at the Obliterator. How ridiculous is that thing? There's some raw strength here, but I found the Spear to be one of the strongest cards in this game, just being able to move the killer. This means you will be spending a little bit of extra time running around, getting nails and discarded tools, and trying to get one of these cool items going. It does make a big difference. Oh yeah, and on the Spear, that works during Retaliate. So if it's a finale and the enemy has multiple attacks, you can take the first attack, retaliate, and knock them into the next space. Very strong. So have a look at some of the events. Lose a Boyfriend is an absolute crack up. If you know the film this is referencing, this is just perfect example of Final Girl paying homage to a great horror moment. And it's one of the few times that the Final Girl can actually go after a victim and put them in the ground. And you get really big rewards for doing so. That already is just a straight up power up card. Unless you're quite unlucky, this is just going to deliver a weapon into your hand. And Home Security allows you some control over the killer's movement. Now remember I mentioned the Spear knocking people back? Combined with Home Security, you can knock them back, put on the security system, and they can't get back in. This allows you to move to the other end of the house and hopefully get some victims out. There's a lot of great tactics you can do with Home Security. The blueprint exists. If you're absolutely addicted to a certain crafted item and need to play with it, you can use the blueprint to go dig that out. The wooden bat gets turned into a whole bunch of things with crafting, but by itself it's still a pretty respectable weapon. And then you have the blender, another great homage to a great horror moment. This is the best weapon in the game for just getting the final shot on the killer. Just shove their head in a damn blender. Good stuff. Now, a recurring theme at Windguard Cottage is that a lot of the events add extra victims. If you draw these 3 cards, that's 7 extra victims. That's a bunch. Aside from that, the rest of the Terror deck is kind of okay. There's not a lot of really scary cards in here, or a lot of dynamic cards. They're just solid killer sort of cards. And placing the killer at the porch can sometimes be a real advantage. Especially if you're on the other side of the map rescuing people. As far as the Terror deck goes, Windguard Cottage is one of the least scary ones.
Windguard Cottage might be the most fun location they've ever made. The gadgets and traps and the crafting that goes on at Windguard Cottage is absolutely amazing. It's the Home Alone version of the game, where you get to set up traps and lure the killer into them and do terrible things to them. For that alone, it is a very good time. The reason I'm marking it down a little is I find it's a very easy location for that reason. The crafted effects are so damn good, and the location is laid out in a pretty forgiving way as well. So while I have a whale of a time there, it's not necessarily the most challenging location. If you're having a really hard time beating a particular killer, give them a go here. There's some tools and tricks in here that could probably help you. Except the poltergeist. Don't bother with the poltergeist here. None of this will matter. Still, an excellent location, lots of fun, just a little on the easy side.
Back on! Mother!
The ship will automatically destruct in T-5 minutes.
Which means my favorite location has to be the USS Conrad from Alien, or the Sulaco from Aliens. It's either one, really.
Here we have the USS Conrad. It has 3 searchable locations and 3 exit locations. You'll also note that there are 4 corridors that have keycards attached to them. These are maintenance ducts, and they can only be moved through if you place a keycard on that spot. Now you start with 1 keycard, and there'll be a couple of others placed on the map. And keycards are a big part of this location. If you want to use a maintenance tunnel, you take a keycard, you take the token off it, and you place it on that tunnel. That means the final girl can now move through that maintenance tunnel, and they can move with victims as well. That is not the only use of keycards though. You can use the keycard at the trash compactor to activate the crusher. Whenever an enemy or victim ends its movement in the trash compactor, there'll be damage done. Now be careful with this one, because it can end up killing victims. Then there's the incinerator on the other side of the ship, and this one takes 2 keycards to activate. And like the crusher, it does damage, but this one can do up to 3 damage. A 4th use for your keycards is the airlock. And the airlock allows you to open up the hangar and basically kill everything in there. Now there's a small chance that the killer will come back to life, and if you're in the location, there's a good chance you'll die as well. But if you've managed to hide yourself away in the escape room and then activate it as the killer comes in, there's a good chance you've just won the game. And the final use of the keycards, which requires you to get 4 of them, which is not easy, is to activate the self-destruct on the bridge. And when the self-destruct's activated, you'll place the marker and it will count down at the end of each upkeep. If you are not in an escape pod, when it reaches a space, you lose. However, it doesn't matter how much health the bad guy has, if the killer is on board the ship, which they will be, they're also dead. They can also be in an escape pod as well, it doesn't matter, they're dead. You also have the super loader, which starts here, and once you get the keys, you can activate it and basically go into a battle form. The super loader is a very strong card, but you do need the key to load it up and get it rolling. There's some exceedingly strong items here. You've of course got the flamethrower again, even though it looks completely different than it does at the ice station. There are a bunch of item cards that allow you to misdirect the enemy as well, which I find quite interesting, but I am a big fan of the Vibro Claw, because Guard and Retaliate are 2 incredibly strong cards, and having them deal damage is just really neat. The Orphan Girl is another one of those hat tips, and this one is clearly to Newt from Aliens. She's actually really strong because she allows you to move through the maintenance shafts without using keycards. And that means you've got more keycards you can spend on doing other things, like activating the self-destruct or blowing the airlock. Cramped escape pods is awful. It requires so much fiddling around to just drop one person off, activate the escape pod, move back, grab someone, move one person back in, activate the escape pod. Super tedious. There's a couple of the terror cards. Gas leak, it just does damage to a random section of the ship. I've drawn this on the first turn and lost like 3 victims straight off with it. It's a nasty, brutal, unfair card, especially early on. And Let's Test the Maintenance Shafts is one card I never factor in, because normally the killer can't move through the maintenance shafts, which seems slightly counterintuitive because the alien loved moving through maintenance shafts. But in this, you're the one going through the maintenance shafts, the killer isn't doing that. So you can think you're reasonably safe, and then all of a sudden it's getting a double move through the shafts and coming straight at you. Absolutely brutal, terrifying card that shakes up the game.
So why is the Conrad my favorite location in the game? And it really does come down to that keycard access thing. You got these keycards, which are limited use items, and you can spend them on opening the tunnels, or you can spend them laying traps, or doing the self-destruct, or activating the hangar bay. There's also the cargo load lifter. There's so many different tools and things available for you to use here. But if you don't spend those keycards on vent access, it's also a really tight and claustrophobic map. So there's opportunity cost for doing that. It's an absolute favorite location of mine because there's so many different ways you can approach a killer. If you're playing the Ratchet Lady here and she's up to 20 health, blast her out the airlock, set the self-destruct. Just get rid of her, you don't have to fight her. And I think that's really cool and really fun. That's why this is a location I keep coming back to with different killers.
Okay, so Gretel has 6 health and some interesting things on the front of her card. -2 horror and moving 2 spaces are pretty good. And getting that long rest action card, well, you don't normally want to pay for it, so getting it for free is pretty cool. Her ultimate ability though leaves me a bit cold. You may convert a 2 to a success by discarding 3 action cards. That's a really heavy cost and it's so situational, but I just don't really care for it. Veronica is all about bonus time. Each person you save gives you a bunch of time. And then from that point on, you reset your time to 7 at the start of the planning phase. That's okay at all, but if you're unlocking your ultimate about halfway through the game, that's like 5-6 extra time maybe. It is made up for her additional victim saving thing being adding 3 extra time. That can be very good. It's much better than her actual ultimate ability, but it does require there to be victims around to be saved. Next up we have Ellen, who has 4 health and 6 save slots. And a real mixed bag at that. Ellen is clearly Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise. Ellen's ultimate ability is when successfully resolving a search action card, you may choose to freely look through all the location's unused item cards instead of the space's item deck. This can be really good or it can be really swingy. Ellen has low health, takes a while to power up, and then while his special ability is good, it's not exactly great. Jeanette's up next. She's got 7 health and only needs to save 4 victims. Jeanette is, of course, inspired by Vasquez from the Alien franchise. And her save powers are some of the best in the game. Take any top item card and take your search card. That just lets her load up with gear. Her special ability, though, is incredibly situational. Having the extra hand slot's pretty good, and having 2 extra charges of something really matters if you've got the right thing to have the extra charges off. In some scenarios, this can do absolutely nothing. You might just not find any items that require charges. When it's good, it's great, but it's more frequently just mid. Uki has 6 health and 4 save slots, and one of those is taking the Furious Strike, which I really like. Uki is really good against killers that have a finale that allows them to attack twice, because once per turn, you can play a copy of the guard card as though it was in your hand. She's also really good at preventing unexpected damage. I find her to be a solid final girl who stays alive pretty well but doesn't necessarily drive the tempo of the game along. Ava is up next with 5 health and 5 save slots, including 2 spaces that allow moves. Her ultimate ability is when making horror rolls, you may re-roll all 1 results. I just think that is flat out better than Gretel's ability. Re-rolling all 1s is great. I'm not sure if you're only allowed to do this once or if you can just keep re-rolling until there are no more 1s. I've always played it as re-rolling it once, and even then, that's still pretty good. Next up we have Patsy, who has 6 health and 5 save slots, including 2 with move 1 space on them. Patsy is very much based off Patricia Tallman, who was in the Night of the Living Dead clip that I included with Terror from the Grave. I mostly know her from Babylon 5 as Lita Alexander, and from about 100 different stunt spots she's been in. Patsy's ultimate ability is once per action phase you may spend 2 time to deal 1 damage to an enemy in your space. The killer cannot lose its final health as a result of this effect. Automatic damage is a great thing. Knowing that you can just pop off 1 zombie without any rolls is a great thing. It's also just good for chipping away at the enemy, because if you're in a final fight, spending 2 time to do that automatic damage is usually worth it. Next up we have Kate with 4 health and 6 save slots, including taking Retaliate and 2 guards. I really like that. Kate is based on Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character from the Thing prequel from 2011. Kate's ultimate is your maximum health is now 7, immediately recover all your health, and while at full health you get an extra die for all horror rolls. This is great. You just need to figure out ways to get your health back up to maximum, and that's an extra free die. You do have to game this a bit, but it is great to be able to walk around on full health and have 4 dice. That makes winning this game a lot easier. Now we're on to the final 3, and all 3 of these final girls are absolutely exceptional. And we're going to start off with Red. Red has 5 health and 6 save slots, and those save slots are a real mixed bag. I like the one that allows you to move up to 2 spaces though. Her ultimate ability is once per action phase, if an enemy is within 2 spaces of you, you may move 1 space for free. This gives her a whole bunch of additional movement. You can use this to attack, because you can use it to close the gap to the enemy and not waste actions on using walks or sprints. And of course you can use it to get away from the killer. Red is exceedingly mobile and suits a run and gun style of play. Next up we have Ginny, who has 6 health and 6 save slots. And again, those save slots are a bit of a mixed bag. Nothing really stands out there. Her ultimate, on the other hand, is really neato. Choose 2 of the following that will apply to all results from resolving that action for the remainder of the game. Move 1 space when resolving walk, +1 health when taking short rest, +1 damage with weak attack, or -1 horror when resolving focus. Now to me, I always pick the same 2. I take walk and focus. And the reason for that is there's 2 of each of those cards. Her ability turns walk into sprint cards, and then you can still buy sprint cards, making her super mobile. And it turns focus cards essentially into distraction cards, which means you've got amazing horror management. You don't really need the extra health recovery or damage, because you're not really having to buy distractions or sprint cards. You can just spend your time on other things. Very, very strong. Turns 0 cost cards into really good cards. And then my favorite final girl from this series is Heather. She's got 5 health and 6 save slots. Very boring save slots, but her ultimate ability is all worth it. When attacking, for each 5 or 6 on your initial horror roll, you may re-roll 1 other die. Add damage to your attack for each star in the final result. So she is essentially doing critical hits. If you rock up with 3 dice and you roll 2 5s, and then re-roll the other one and get another 5 or a 6, that's 3 bonus damage. On top of whatever you were doing because you succeeded. If Heather has a weapon, she's reliably doing 3, 4, 5 damage every time she attacks. And there's not a lot of killers that can stand up to that for long. The reason I really like Heather is those damage spikes. She can end games quickly. 1 really good roll on a weak attack and you've done like 5 or 6 damage to the baddie. It makes sense that she came in the same pack as the Ratchet Lady, who ends up having lots of health. Because it doesn't matter how much health you got, Heather's gonna chop it down real quick. And for me, my favorite final girls are the ones that are best in the final showdown. And no other final girl hits quite as brutally as Heather does.
So here we go, rating the boxes overall very quickly. Number 5 is Once Upon a Full Moon. I think this is still a really good box, and it's a really good starter box. It's just up against terribly tough competition. Number 4 is Madness in the Dark. Wolf Asylum is a very fun location. The Ratchet Lady's pretty cool, but again, super tough competition here. And the next 3 feature films above it are some of the best they've ever done. This is still a really good box. Number 3 is Panic at Station 2891. The Organism is really, really cool. The ice station's a bit nasty, but this is a super themey, super interesting box. And it really pushes the limit of what you can do with the Final Girl system. I love the movie that inspired this, and I think this is a great version of that idea. Fantastic feature film. Number 2 is Into the Void, and this was a really close call. The Evomorph is fantastic to fight against, and the Conrad is a wonderful location. And Alien is just the best thing ever when it comes to horror. So yeah, it was really hard for me to put another feature film ahead of this, but this is a fantastic box. And of course that makes my number 1 box A Knock at the Door. The killer here is fantastic, and it is a great, super fun location. It just pips Into the Void because I think it's more compatible with other things. Seeing the 3 killers at different locations is a great time, and the cottage itself is a fantastic place to take on any killer in the game. There is a lot to like in here. It's got a tough killer, and it's got a really, really fun location. If I was recommending to anyone what would be the second feature film to pick up, out of all of them, I would recommend picking up A Knock at the Door. It's a really good time. Okay, so based on all that, I'm going to go back through and rank Season 1 and Season 2 alongside each other. Now, Season 2 is my favorite season of Final Girl to date. I haven't played much of Season 4 yet, so I'm holding off judgment there. But Season 3, I felt got a little bit wobbly in places. And while Season 1, they were still finding their feet. I think Season 2 was just solid from start to finish. So yeah, let's see those revised killer rankings and location rankings based on Season 1 and Season 2 to date. Alright, so that was the end of the Season 2 video. So now, as mentioned before, we have Season 1 for you to check out already, and hoping to have Season 3 and Season 4 done by the end of the year. Now, Season 2 I paid for out of my own pocket. So while I received a review copy of the core game and the Season 1 games, Season 2 I backed on Kickstarter myself. And a reminder, 3 Minute Board Games does not do paid content. Keep us independent by supporting us on Patreon. And until next time, take care everyone.